Greetings, I'm your host, Dr. Wolfula, with a review of Abigail, Universal's latest entry in their scary dancing girls cinematic universe, directed by frequent collaborators Matt Bettinelli-Olpin and Tyler Gillette.
What can I say? I like playing with my food.
Now, I'm not gonna lie, going into this movie, I was expecting to not like Abigail. The trailer gives the whole premise and most of the plot away, and makes the movie look very one-note, seemingly presenting it as the kind of horror movie Blumhouse has been putting out lately. Even though it isn't a Blumhouse movie, it looks on the surface like something they'd release. A really cutesy, safe and gimmicky movie. A horror movie designed to get people who don't usually watch horror flicks into a theater, with the title of the movie being a girl's name that was popular with parents in 1996.
What's your name? Mine's Abigail.
You can call me Joey.
Do you have any kids?
I also wasn't a fan of the directing duo's previous work on the last two Scream sequels, so I didn't know how I'd feel about their follow-up, but maybe they'd do better going back to more original material like Ready or Not. Despite my prejudices and skepticism going into the movie, though, I was surprised to find that I enjoyed Abigail. It's more than the sum of its parts, and it's got a lot more going for it than just the surface-level premise of a little ballerina vampire girl presented in the trailer. Abigail tells the story of a crew of 6 initially anonymous criminals hired by Giancarlo Esposito's Lambert to kidnap a little girl named Abigail and ransom her back to her mysterious father.
You know the rules. No real names, no backstories, no cell phones.
The group of disparate criminals are locked away in an isolated mansion awaiting their ransom money while babysitting Abigail. And to maintain anonymity, each character is given a fake name by Lambert that corresponds to a member of the Rat Pack. With Melissa Barrera in the lead role of kidnapper with a heart of gold, Joey.
I don't care about her name. Whose kid is she?
Dan Stevens as the antagonistic former cop, Frank.
Let's go kill us a fucking vampire.
Will Catlett as Rickles, a sniper who might be the one black guy in the group, but that doesn't mean he dies first. No, he dies second. Catherine Newton as Sammy, a ditzy computer hacker who proves once again that screenwriters don't actually know anything about hacking.
You think you can hack the locks?
With what internet? And if I could, I don't have any equipment. You know, there's gotta be like a control room or something.
Kevin Durand, not the basketball player, as Peter the Muscle, who looks like a roided out, probably smarter X/Tesla CEO.
She's not gonna kill me.
And finally, the late Angus Cloud as Dean the Getaway Driver. Abigail was unfortunately Angus Cloud's final film, and it was dedicated in his memory during the credits.
Hello?
Eventually, the gang discovers who Abigail's father is, which was kept secret from them by their boss Lambert. Abigail's father is revealed to be Christoph Laza, a much-feared crime lord, which makes the kidnappers believe they've been set up. But it soon becomes clear that who they really need to be worried about is Abigail, who turns out to be a 300-year-old vampire trapped in a little girl's body and on the loose in the mansion.
Fucking vampire. A ballerina vampire.
Abigail seems like it was a victim of Megan's success last year. Abigail was originally supposed to be a reimagining of Dracula's Daughter from 1936, retaining the same title as the original film, but my pure assumption is after Megan became a hit for Universal last year, while Universal's 2 other Dracula films the same year flopped, Universal decided to change the title from Dracula's Daughter to Abigail so they could center the marketing campaign around the novelty of a little girl vampire and distance the film from the potential box office death of Dracula. The trailer admittedly makes this movie look dumb and repetitive, seeming like nothing more than Vampirina picking off one-note characters, but even though the trailer gives away a lot of the movie's story, it's not a good representation of what the movie actually is. And a couple signs that this was supposed to be a movie connected to Dracula are still in the final film. Abigail often dances to Swan Lake, the ballet featured as the theme of the original Dracula.
I fucking hate ballet.
And Abigail's crime lord father, Christoph Laza, played by Matthew Good, mentions that Laza isn't his real name, and he's gone by many different names over the years. I think it's safe to assume he's probably Dracula, but it'd probably be too on the nose to say he's Dracula, since the movie makes a lot of references to vampire fiction except Dracula.
What do we know about vampires?
That they're not real.
Abigail isn't just about its title character, but played by Alicia Weir, Abigail is the highlight of the film. She starts off seeming like an innocent girl, but when she goes into vampire mode, being 300 years old, she essentially has the mind of an adult in a child's body. And the performance is amusingly convincing and makes Abigail more than just a mini Nosferatu knocking off characters.
Please let me out.
Really good at pretending to be a little girl.
Thank you.
And her being a ballerina isn't just a cutesy thing for the trailers. Every time Abigail goes in for a kill, it's delivered as a very choreographed ballet move. The film is very stylish in its presentation, and in a departure from Megan, it is R-rated and really fucking gory. With decapitations, characters exploding into a red mist, and by the end, the whole setting of the movie is drenched in blood. Abigail is not a cutesy little Blumhouse movie, thankfully.
I'm just really enjoying it.
The setting of Abigail is the film's other highlight. It takes place in an old spooky mansion, and it might be one of the best spooky mansions I've seen in a movie. The location feels like something straight out of Resident Evil on PS1, to the point where I feel like Abigail could be considered the best live-action Resident Evil movie ever made. I could definitely see this movie being turned into a video game. You could put so many seventh guest puzzles in this mansion. The rest of the cast of Abigail is solid, especially taken as a whole. Even though they're playing criminals who kidnap a little girl, I forgot about what brought them into the situation they found themselves in and just enjoyed the banter and antagonism between the characters as they try to survive in the mansion.
See you in 24 hours, my lovely pack of rats.
How come you called us rats?
I wasn't so into Melissa Barrera as the lead Joey, but like usual, it's not because of her performance, but just because of how Joey is written. Joey kind of feels like a self-insert of the screenwriters. She knows everything, she's never wrong, with the one exception being trusting Abigail initially before she turns out to be a vampire. She's infallible in her deductions, can intuit information about all the characters instantly. While all the other characters are bumbling around in the dark, Joey always knows exactly what to do, with her only flaw being that she used to be a junkie, but has entered recovery to try to reconnect with her estranged son, making Joey also the only character with a sympathetic background.
Hey, Kayla, it's Mom. I love you so much.
It just feels like Joey is too transparently designed to be a representation of the screenwriter moving the plot along. I didn't dislike Melissa Barrera's performance, it just felt like her character might as well have had a neon sign over her head that said main character.
Stake through the heart. Daylight is a big one.
Inversely, I did enjoy Dan Stevens as Frank, a very flawed, violent, and profane character who seems to have the word fuck in every line of his dialogue.
Alright, let's go kill us a fucking vampire.
Frank's willing to beat up and kill Abigail before she's even revealed to be a vampire, turning up the heat between the characters early on. I was kinda hoping the Frank character would develop more and change as a character. I was a little baffled with the direction they went in with Frank, but it admittedly was the only thing I didn't see coming in the movie, even though it felt kinda like they only did it just to leave the ending open for a sequel. If you're a Giancarlo Esposito fan, he only has 2 scenes in what feels like a glorified cameo, but his second scene is still really memorable, even though I saw it coming based on how his first scene ended. There's maybe just a little too much exposition and foreshadowing in this movie. I'll ultimately say the biggest weakness of Abigail is the writing. It's not bad, it's just not at the same level of the performances and what's put up on the screen.
Someone has been messing with us ever since we got here, right? It's gotta be some kind of trick.
It can kind of be too annoyingly meta for its own good, with the characters quickly identifying Abigail as a vampire based on their familiarity with fictional vampires, which leads to some eye-roll-worthy references to vampire shows and movies like Twilight.
Anne Rice or True Blood, Twilight. Very different kind of vampires.
But it gets a little stupid when a character gets bitten by Abigail and they question immediately what's going to happen to them next. Bitch, you're gonna turn into a vampire. You talked about knowing what vampires do for the whole movie. What do you think's gonna happen to you? I will say Abigail turning somebody into a vampire is really cool in its execution. They become a mindless puppet that Abigail controls directly through her movements. Back to the writing, though, it does also lead to some groaner, snarky one-liner dialogue like, "Are we really doing this right now?" or, "You good?" Abigail doesn't have great jokes. A lot of the verbal humor fell flat for me, but the movie has a good physical sense of humor and its splatstick gags.
What the f?
Some weak dialogue and predictable plot points aside, Abigail is just a fun horror movie all around with some good performances and cool gore. The film is also a good homage to Universal's classic monster movie heritage while still being its own thing and satisfying modern sensibilities. The ensemble cast and cool mansion setting also makes Abigail feel like a spiritual successor to those William Castle remakes from the late 90s/early 2000s. All in all, Abigail's a good time, but maybe a film you don't have to rush out and see right away. I give Abigail a Joey Bishop out of Frank Sinatra. Before I go, I want to give a shout out to this video's sponsor, me! Pledge to my Patreon today to support the channel, help it continue to grow, and you'll also get access to weekly movie nights every Sunday, and archive commentaries if you missed the movie nights live. Just $5 a month to get a movie night every week. Here's the movie I'll be streaming next Sunday. Pledge to patreon.com/Dr. Wolfula if you're interested, and I thank you in advance. If you liked this video, like it, and if you loved it, click the subscribe and bell buttons for more vids. I'd also like to thank these fine folks pledged my shout-out tier on Patreon for all their kind support. Videos like this wouldn't be possible without all their help. Thank you for watching, see you next time. Dr. Wolfula signing out.